Hello, I am Mary Alice Davis. Welcome to the Media and Community Leaders. We are very happy that you have joined us today to learn about this year's Sangamon County Historical Society's Cemetery Walk. The Sangamon County Historical Society will again sponsor our annual cemetery walking tour. Echoes of Yesteryear, a walk through Oak Ridge Cemetery. It will be held from noon to 4 p.m. Sunday, October 1st, here at Oak Ridge Cemetery. The walk will provide visitors with a glimpse into the history and heritage of Springfield. The popular cemetery walk, which is sponsored by the Sangamon County Historical Society and co-sponsored by Oak Ridge Cemetery, has been held annually for 12 years, beginning in 1996 and ending in 2008. It was brought back 8 years ago by popular demand and was so successful that we are offering it again this fall. The event is free and open to the public, however, donations are suggested. 7 actors dressed in period costumes will portray historic individuals or their family members who have been buried at Oak Ridge Cemetery, each telling the stories of the people they portray. This year, all of the individuals made significant contributions to our community. One of the characters is here today to talk about his character. These authentic stories, which have been thoroughly researched, will take the audience back to an earlier time and provide insight into the lives and times of these historical individuals. At this time, I would like to introduce Greg Tolley, Executive Director of Oak Ridge Cemetery, who can tell you about the logistics of the cemetery walk.
Thank you, Mary Alice, and a sincere thanks to the Sangamon County Historical Society for continuing to sponsor the cemetery walk again this year. We know it takes a lot of time and a lot of manpower to put this event on, so thank you to the many volunteers who will assist with all aspects of this event. It's actually a history comes to alive type event that you can't read about in a book, but you can get the full experience in person. So I encourage you to come out and bring your children as well and enjoy the event with us. There will be plenty of free parking at the north end of the cemetery. Once parked, buses will transport you to the first grave site. You'll be dropped off at that site, then you will walk the other grave sites and listen and learn of the rich history of the cemetery. The walk is about 1/2 mile, and when you are finished, you will be brought back to the staging area by the buses. We invite the community to come and watch history come alive by supporting this event. Once again, I would like to thank the Sangamon County Historical Society for sponsoring this popular event.
Thank you, Greg. Now I would like to introduce one of the individuals who will be showcased during the walk, Herbert George, who will be interpreted by Pat Foster.
Good morning. Herbert George lies buried about 150 yards northeast of us here in Oak Ridge Cemetery, along with his father and mother, wife, and all of his family members except for one sister, Irma, who is buried in the Abbey Mausoleum. 5 members of the family specialized in photography, beginning with the father, who had a studio in Chicago when Governor John Peter Altgeld invited him to Springfield in 1897. For the next 14 years, he operated a very popular studio and created a number of innovations in photography, but died young in 1911. As young as we were, 2 of my brothers and I, and my sister, who specialized in children's photography, opened or continued the Victor George studio. My brother, Victor Amel, had a more colorful life than any of the rest of us. He quickly left, moved to Chicago, became famous for photographing opera stars. That took him to New York, where he had a very interesting career, leading ultimately to become photo editor of the New York Times. Following that, he had a little bit of a breakdown and embraced numerology, which is kind of a pseudoscience that teaches that things in people's life are predestined by things like their birth date and the number of letters in their name. So he became Ed Hall for most of the rest of his life. Meanwhile, back in Springfield, I, Herbert, continued the studio, ultimately renaming it the Herbert George Studio, was able to combine my love of photography with my love of circuses. Both my brother Victor and I contributed significantly to the movie industry in addition to the photography profession in the United States. Our family collectively left a rich history, some 500,000 negatives that document amazing facts and pictures of people throughout the early and mid-20th century. Sadly, all but 10% of those died in a fire, were burned up in a fire in 1980. But happily, about 10% were preserved, and along with some of Victor's early works, they live on in the Illinois State Historical Library. They collectively document the people, the buildings, and the way of life in Springfield for most of the first part of the 20th century. People in the Historical Society research and provided me with a wonderful script. Often that script sends me to the Sangamon Valley collection, where there are wonderful people who help you find additional facts. I looked up a lot of articles. For example, Ed Hall gave a talk on numerology in Springfield. He's buried here as Victor Emil George, and the family apparently wasn't too happy about his change of name. But typically the research that they do spurs other inquiries, and the hope is to create a well-curated presentation for people. How Victor Emanuel, our father, he was born and grew up in Milwaukee, and it's not known, at least to me, exactly how he got started in the profession. For 10 years before he moved to Springfield, he had a studio on North Clark Street in Chicago called the Crystal Palace Photographic Studio. And John Peter Altgeld invited him here. For all of us, it was a passion that our father passed on to us.
Thank you, Pat. A couple more details. In addition, refreshments will be available for purchase by the Sangamon County Historical Society. Parking will be available in designated areas of the cemetery. It is a walking tour, approximately 1/2 mile in length. Thank you again.